Welcome to Independent Comics, the artist in storytelling. My name is Andre Owens. I publish a comic called Force Galaxia, and I do a web series called The Psychedelic Detective. I spent most of my career as a director of photography, shooting music videos, independent films, commercials, etc. I'm going to let everyone introduce themselves. First, we have Dwayne Copeland.
I am Dwayne Copeland. I am an independent producer. I produce the CB Nation web series about superheroes, along with Scott F. Evans. He's my co-creator on that. I'm also writing a science fiction short story called The Adventures of Jarrell Sunstormer.
Hi, Robert Roach. I work on my day job as a storyboard artist and concept designer. I also draw a comic book named Menthu. We just began our Kickstarter on that today, so if you look up Menthu, it's spelled the way it sounds. And I also wrote and drew an award-winning comic called The Roach, not based on me. It's I call it noir on steroids. And it's set in Prohibition Chicago and such, and people liked it and so on and so forth, so that's me.
My name is Hannibal Taboo. Ooh, okay. My name is Hannibal Taboo. I am the writer of the Buy Pile at Comic Book Resources. I am also the winner of the 2012 Top Cow Talent Hunt and wrote Artifacts 35 for them. I have written the Soulfire source book and the Fathom source book for Aspen Comics. Several other indie projects. Also did,
including one of mine.
Yeah, I'm working on a Menthu story with this fine gentleman right here. I also did Wassa Will to Power, a prose fantasy novella for Stranger Comics.
Very nice.
And let's see, what else do I do? I do a bunch of stuff. I'm sure somebody's gonna be mad at me for forgetting because I forgot Stranger Comics in the last panel. But oh yeah, and I'm a jerk, so sorry. That's me.
All right, well let's start off. Let's start off asking what is independent comics. Dwayne, how would you, or independent film, how would you describe that? How would you?
Typically, independent film is any film that wasn't produced by a studio. It's as simple as that, really.
Robert, what do you think about independent comics? How would you differentiate independent comics from, say, Marvel, DC, Top Cow?
Well, I would say the differentiation is you ain't got no money to make it. That's the biggest one. I mean, and it's cute, but it's also true. Because I look at guys like a Neil Gaiman or a Mark Waid, when they do their own projects, they got plenty of people to pony up money. And I remember a couple years ago, I think it was Gail Simone was involved in an indie project that she was bringing to life with some other professionals she had worked with, but it was her own thing. And she did a Kickstarter and got in the hundreds of thousands of dollars for it. So is that really an indie?
Womanthology, I remember.
Yes. Is that an indie? Yeah, but it's got bank, man. So I think.
So are you saying there's like different levels to indie then? Or?
I would say there is. I would say there is. I would like to be at the highest tier of it all, but right now we're not. But it doesn't mean, and I don't think that the tiers are based on levels of excellence. I think the tiers are based on levels of access to the publicity part of media and the excellence of your commodity. That stratifies stuff. So you can have something that has some excellent content, but because the person is relatively unknown, doesn't have access to the media, so it can be some kind of a sliding level thing, in my opinion, as far as how to gauge what an indie is at first, and then also within that indie group, what's happening with your project.
Hannibal, can you talk a little bit about the difference between working for indies and then working for small publishers?
Well, the resources available is one of the first things I notice. For example, I'm working with Aspen Comics right now. So if I say, oh shoot, I don't remember what Aspen did in this one issue of Fathom, I call up their production manager, Mark, and he puts it on their established FTP site and I download it. if I don't remember something that Minthu did in the issue with Robert, I gotta hope he's home, pick up the phone, hope he's near a computer that he can use. You know, it's a much smaller operation. That's not to say one is better or one is worse. It's to say that it's just a difference in degree, a difference in what you can accomplish, and it changes timelines because more people and more money means that you can access the market in a more agile fashion, more quickly. But however, it also changes so for me, the reason why I do my work the way I do is I try to follow what I call the George Clooney model. I do a book for somebody else, I do something for me. Do a book for somebody else, I do something for me. And doing that helps elevate my profile, so when I do my own book, more people see it, more people will be interested in it, so on and so forth. Before I won the Top Cow Talent Hunt, I couldn't sell anything. The day it was announced, I got Watson and Holmes. The literal day it was announced, I got that book. So, you know, if you commit to the work and if you finish the work, you can move between the tiers, but you will understand that there will be differences, and I don't believe that those differences are necessarily a negative. They're just things that you have to understand in the way that you work with the product.
Well, that leads to the next point that I want to talk about is the old production triangle. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that. Basically, you have three sides.
You should know this.
Fast, or good. Basically, you can have two of those three. You can have fast and good, but it won't be cheap. You have cheap and fast, but it won't be good. So you can have two of those three. Dwayne, can you talk a little bit about that, about working on CV Nation and the things you had to do to get it done in that production triangle field?
Well, we have cheap. Actually, well, we only have really one, which is cheap.
Lies.
No, it's good too. No, it's good too.
I would rather watch.
I mean, we've got good, but it's not fast. It's not fast. I mean, we managed to do the first season largely over 2 weekends, but we did like we scheduled it as if it was a feature film and not like it was individual episodes. And shot the bulk of it over those 2 weekends. That meant we were able to capitalize on lights and everything for multiple episodes as opposed to spreading it out over time. That was one way we were able to get away with getting all of that done in that short amount of time. But it's a struggle. It's keeping it going. Because we're paying for it out of our own pockets. We don't have any studios backing us on this.
Robert, now you're both an artist and a writer, so you can, the production triangle looks a little different from you because you can do it good and cheap, but can you do it fast?
Hell no. I'm sorry, there are children in the room.
Yes, please watch your language.
Heckle no. No, I mean, I am subject to the triangle, I think, in a different way. As you said, I mean, right now is a good example. I'm working on an 8-episode TV show as a board artist, and that's, hey man, that's good, believe me. As a are there any other freelancers in the audience? Y'all know when you get that job that's going to go like for 2-3 months, that's a good job. Thanks somebody say, make you feel the Holy Ghost and stuff. So I can relate to that, but it also means that I don't have enough time to do some of the stuff I really want to do. And so that, like the cheap and the good is happening, but the fast is, like that's out. But one of the reasons, and like you guys who know me, I've said this to you before, so I apologize for chewing my cabbage twice, but part of the reason, the principal reason that I do the stuff myself is because I don't feel like dealing with knuckleheads. And it's, any of you who are out there who have put an ad online and had so-and-so respond to it and they're really good and they show promise, and I can do a page a week and then takes 2 months to get a page or something like that. I don't have no time for that. I don't have no time for that kind of foolishness. And so just do it myself. And I'm fortunate that I've been blessed with the abilities to do it myself, so I just do it my own damn self.
Okay. Hey, Hannibal, would you suggest for someone that wants to create their own thing, is self-publishing the way to go now, or? looking for a publisher?
Absolutely. The flexibility of self-publishing is both control and financial reward. One of the artists I'm in a creative studio called the Operative Network with 4 other people, 2 other writers and 2 artists. And one of the artists, I introduced him to this site called gumroad.com. If you're selling any content, please learn about gumroad.com, because let's say your book's on Amazon, right? You sell it for $5, you get however much back that Amazon feels like giving you. If you sell the same $5 book for $5 on Gumroad, you get $4.50. $4.50 is awesome off of a $5 book. That's more than any publisher anywhere will ever give you, in all seriousness. So self-publishing gives you that kind of ability and flexibility to have your own schedules and so on and so forth. It also, however, means that you're the entire machine. You're the marketing department. You're the promotions department. You're the production department. You're the copy editor. You're the intern, so you're going to have to sleep with yourself. And honestly, that could get awkward. So,
especially if you have no standards.
Yeah, you know, it's like late at work, you try to work, it's like, stop getting handsy. But anyway, my wife hates that joke. She hates that joke so much. But so yeah, definitely self-publishing is an option. It is not for the meek of heart. It is an uphill climb in every possible way. And
Sisyphus comes to mind.
It is, but for that 5 seconds when you got that rock at the top of the hill, woo, can't nobody tell you nothing. Can't nobody tell you nothing. It's awesome. So, you know, it's, I believe, a high worth chasing, which is why this summer I'm going to bring out Cruel Summer, the visual mixtape remix, which is going to have a whole lot of story material. This is going to be for sale. We gave it away free at last San Diego. And, you know, I believe in self-publishing as much as I believe in, because, like I said, George Clooney will do a big studio movie, then he'll turn around and do something really personal, something really important to him, and win a bunch of awards that won't make any money. So, you know, it balances out.
It's interesting that you mentioned George Clooney, because when I was in management training program at Warner Brothers, my office happened to oversee the Section 8 stuff. It was when he and Soderbergh were still working together. Okay. Now, I didn't meet the man. I didn't meet Soderbergh, but it was interesting seeing that plan. He had that plan back around 2001, 2002, and was fleshing it out even at that time, because he was doing the Good Night and Good Lucks and doing the Perfect Storms, and we oversaw it when they did 12 and 13 for Ocean's 11, and how they were, you know, like that. Those were the money movies.
Yep.
But then he was going away and do The Good Shepherd and Syriana. So he's like, boom, here's your money, Warner Brothers. Now leave me alone while I do this.
Did he have pictures of himself with the mullet from Facts of Life? Did he have those?
Oh yeah. All right.
I remember.
No, he didn't have
I remember.
those, yes.
I remember.
I believe in you guys. Okay. Now, if you've got you know your production triangle, you know your budget, you know you want to do something. How do you get your idea from your brain to the paper to the artist? Can you go into a little bit of talking about that?
The craft of it? Well, as in comics, first of all, you have to learn the craft of it. In the same way that if you wanted to, you know, fight karate, you would have to go get a master and you'd have to study at a dojo. I downloaded scripts from Christopher Priest, who was the first black editor in comics ever. I downloaded scripts from Dwayne McDuffie, and I read them religiously. I paid very close attention to what they did. I learned the structure of how a comic script is not telling a story to an audience, it's telling a story to an artist, and then he tells your story to the audience. Or she, not to be sexist, I should know better than that. But, so in that, well, you know, that's me. This guy's like, I don't have to do that, I do my own stuff, blah, blah, blah. So, you have to study the tools itself. I mean, and my first comic scripts, I still have them from when I started trying to be a comics writer in 2000. They're not as good. They're terrible. They're really kind of terrible. But they were steps towards what Malcolm Gladwell says, it takes 10,000 hours of doing something to master something. So I had to be terrible. I had to get them done and get that terrible out of the way so I could get on to the better scripts that would actually pay me money, which is awesome. Getting paid money for stuff that, I'm like, wait, I just wrote this and you're gonna give me a check? Sweet. So.
Actually, I have a story like that. When I was in high school, I wrote to, and I forget the name, I think it was Eclipse Comics. They were publishing Airboy at the time.
Yep.
I asked for a script, and they actually sent me an actual script from Airboy #5, and it had editor's notes on it.
Nice.
There was a major villain that the writer wanted to transform, and the editor vetoed it. Said, we're not going to do to this, I think it was Abomination or something, I can't remember. We're not going to do to this character what DC did to Lex Luthor. Because they turned Lex Luthor into, he was wearing the battle suit or something at the time. And so that was, as you were saying, it's the writer telling the artist what to show the audience, the readership. It was very informative to actually get that script. I still have that to this day.
Nice.
Can you guys talk a little bit of, oh, sorry, Robert.
No, I was going to say that as far as Gladwell's 1,000 hours thing, or 10,000 hours, thank you, 10,000 hours thing, I teach illustration at Otis College of Art in LA, and I tell my students that, you know, everybody, if you're born with a talent, you're born with different levels of mistakes. And somebody may be born with this level of mistakes, and somebody may be born with this level of mistakes. And as you work, you throw those mistakes away. And the more you throw away, the closer you get toward being at a professional level. Now maybe I was born with this number, and Lisa was born with this number, and Lisa's lazy. And I keep working and keep working and keep working, and Lisa kind of works sometimes, and I get to hear, and I'm at a professional level because I busted my ass, and she, who was born with more acumen than I did, didn't. I'm a better artist, not because Lisa has less talent than I am. In fact, she has more talent than I do, but I applied myself to it. So it takes both.
Okay, so you've got your story, you know how you want to tell it. How do you go about finding, no, for Dwayne or Hannibal, not you, Robert, because you're an artist, how do you go about finding people to tell that story?
They're all downstairs right now. Well, maybe not right now, I think the floor's closed, but tomorrow they'll be downstairs.
So you're saying, so if you're a writer out there, how many of you guys are writers? How many want to publish their own stuff?
Oh, hang on.
So,
before you answer, how many are artists in the room? Y'all should meet each other.
Meet each other, that's what I'm saying.
Shake hands.
Oh, wait, no, I saw that couple. You got it locked down, because you know what I'm saying, on the writing thing. And he put her hand up. She said, I'm not an artist. Yeah, he is. So you got it. That means you got to come through on Valentine's Day.
But I wash the dishes. Get back to work on those pages.
Get that artwork right. You better come through on Valentine's Day and birthdays now. All right.
Who's a writer looking for an artist? Okay, look around the room.
Who's the artist?
Okay,
who's an artist looking for work?
Artists raise your right hand, and writers raise your left hand so that you can identify each other.
Maybe a group
Left
hug.
hand or artist?
Maybe a group hug afterwards.
Okay, could you guys talk a little bit about when you have different projects, finding different artists, either directors of photography or lighting for film, or pencilers or editors or whatever. Talk about how to find different projects, to find different artists for that specific project. What's the process of doing that?
Well, the standard resources available to people: digital webbing, Craigslist, even. You know, there are online resources where what's the one? DeviantArt, is it?
Yeah. I mentioned that.
Artists post their work in looking to get work, but note that word I'm using: work. They don't want to do it for free. They don't want to do it for a portion of ownership of your thing because they don't know you and they don't like you and they don't care.
Or exposure.
They want to get paid.
Not related to you.
All of us are working to be professional. So,
do you like to keep your lights on, man?
Oh,
I don't like to keep my lights on.
My lights are beautiful, man.
Yes.
They illuminate.
They're
illuminating.
Yeah.
So, there's rare instances where, for example, you have a friend and a friend has a brilliant idea and you're like, dog, I would love to play in that sandbox. Would you be interested in me writing a story for you? And he's like, a day I don't have to write something, I can just draw? Sure, whatever.
No, I said, you want to do something with my character? Feel free, man.
So there are times when after you forge those relationships, but if you're going cold calling people, then you're either going to need money or you're going to need a plan. So I recommend money because most of the time it works better, even though there's an artist in Idaho who had an existential crisis and flipped out and didn't finish my work after I'd paid him a whole bunch of money. But I don't hold that against him, even though, whatever. Anyway, he's doing stuff.
Go ahead and say his name.
He's doing stuff for Boom Studios now. Anyway, but no.
You need money and a
Anyway,
plan.
yeah, so you're going to have to use the resources you have, and you're going to have to be able to, if your work is important to you, you're going to have to put out something of value. not just to you, but to the person who's doing the work. Because if their work is of value, it's worth something. What are you going to give them that is worth that? And that, it doesn't just lead down to the penciler, the inker, then the colorist, then the letterer. And truthfully, you really do need an editor because your spell check skills are not that good. There's an award-nominated comic I read just this last week that spelled wouldn't wrong. Wouldn't.
Would not.
Wouldn't. Spell the contraction. Put the apostrophe in the wrong place. Something that any spell check anywhere would get. He didn't run spell check though because he didn't have an editor. Because he believed in himself. He was wrong.
You know that Illustrator even has a spell check on it when you're doing that lettering.
Hashtag IJS. Exactly. So.
You know what? That doesn't apply to just writing either, because I'm actually an assistant editor on a book where characters were changing colors. That what they were wearing were changing from panel to panel. So
that's racist.
Why you editing a racist book, man?
Well, I guess it was between the Navi because it was blue. It went from blue to yellow. What they were wearing. I'm like, is this the same person? Mm-hmm. So yeah, you do need an editor. The editor will catch those types of errors, either in the writing or in the art.
And you know, I think what Hannibal said about him writing on Menthu is very illustrative because, yeah, brother knocked out a wonderful story, wonderful three-parter, and played around with some of the characters he had created a while back. And so, you know, I have never said this to him directly, but I think he has inferred it. I took it as an honor and as a responsibility to then turn around, and I asked you a lot about what you wanted those characters to look like. And because in my head, I'm saying, okay, he has never really seen these characters. He has imagined them, and he has a way that I have an opportunity to flesh out for him visually what these characters are that he has simply written about. And I remember when we did Dynamis, the last character, Dynamis, who is this mega angel, and asking him what he wanted, what he thought it would look like, and I sent him some stuff, and he said, no, I'm thinking this, that, and that, and this, and I said, okay, now I know what you want him to look like. And I went in, I played around with a bunch of stuff, and he came back and he said, that's him! I need these as turnarounds. I said, okay, I think I've paid him back for his efforts. And you have, as a creator and as an illustrator, beyond friend, but as that, somebody bringing something of worth to you, turn around and give them some worth back with it.
Mm-hmm. Don't miss your deadlines, kids. That's assy.
Which leads into my next question. If you're doing an independent book, 22 pages, could you give anybody an estimate about how much it would cost to produce that type of book?
If you're paying for it?
If you're paying for it, yes.
Well, the average art, I have seen international artists go as low as $35 to $50 a page. Whether they show up once they have the money, I don't know.
Is that just for pencils, or that's just pencils, inks, and art?
That's just pencils. That's literally just pencils. Inking,
can't do it for that in America.
No. I've never seen an American artist working for less than $100 a page. I've never seen an American artist.
That's worthwhile.
USA. Anyway, but
that's worthwhile.
Not that there's anything wrong with it. Again, different standards of living lead to different things. I know there's some artists from Cameroon that are talking about working with me now, and they're like telling me, well, if you could do this, I'm like, whoa, that's all you want? Really? That's all you want? I'm like, I may have that in my wallet, player. We can do this right now. It depends on, but then there's also going to be a language barrier with those people. There's going to be, if I say, oh, the character has a fade haircut. I was working with an Australian artist once. He was like, what's a fade haircut? I'm like, oh my, okay, dog, we got a problem. So the prices will escalate from those levels, and you will, because like I said, that's just the penciling. I've gotten lettering done as cheap as $15 a page, but he's kind of a friend. Coloring, I don't even know about. I'd have to ask somebody about that because I didn't get that. I handed that off to somebody else once I got into that. But you have to add that up. So a fully realized comic book will run you a couple grand, $3,000, of real actual cash if you're gonna lay out.
And that's before published. That's before printing.
Yeah, that's before you've even printed anything. Printing is a whole nother set of money. Distributing it is a whole another set of money, which is why personally I keep telling people, go digital, go digital, go digital. because you're going to be able to save yourself a lot of money in getting the product to people, and it'll be more evergreen. You know, a physical comic, it's in the stores, it's not. A digital comic is there pretty much forever. And if you're an independent and if you're working and starting, and yes, sir, I'll answer your question in just a sec. I believe that's a much more savvy use of your money and your time, because you don't know if you're Brian Michael Bendis or Brian Michael Booty. So you had to find these things out on your own in the marketplace. But I think
go ahead. Question.
Well, you were saying that, you know, digital comics are evergreen because they're always there, right? But now we have print-on-demand services too. So I know a lot of indie comic publishers are only printing short runs, which I understand are expensive. But if you do like anthologies or like, or if you do a collected issues, it saves them a lot in cost. So you can print on demand those. So those can be evergreen products as well, as long as you have a good publisher and you know how to maximize the cost of that. You can keep those coming out as needed. And unlike a major publisher who's going to keep their books on the shelves for a limited amount of time, and they're going to come off and go to the back issue, then you as an independent creator can just print those on demand as needed if you have like an internet store.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
However, what I was going to say, there are limitations there as well, because I did a print-on-demand project, and the percentage of the money that I got back for the effort that I put into it was awful. It was frankly awful. I had to charge like $8 to be able to make any money at all, and selling an $8 book is a lot harder than selling a $5 book. It is a lot harder than selling a $3 book. By the way, Wasso Will to Power on Amazon, $3 right now. So yes, that is feasible, and I, at certain points, agree with the value of a prestige print to order thing where you actually get physical copies. But for people just starting out, I think that's a tough hill to climb, and I would not recommend it for most people starting out, unless, you know, you look at the art and like, dang, this is like Robert Roach. What you got here, player? So unless it's like that, I wouldn't recommend it to most people just starting out.
Go ahead, Robert. What do you think about that, Robert? I mean, is it the kind of thing, if you have it digital, you can sell it that way, and if you're coming to conventions, you can do print on demand and have 10, 15 copies and sell. But what does that versus doing straight printing, say getting 1,000 books printed? What difference is that in your mind?
In my mind, I think you should do both, because the digital is so much more feasible, and it's so much easier to have digital shelf space than it is physical shelf space, and plus a good number of comic book store owners are bougie, and they aren't trying to think about nobody's indie. It doesn't have anything to do with your quality. It has to do with, and it's a chicken or the egg kind of question, to be honest. You know, I could be as short as possible, but to be honest, it's, does the audience cause shop owners to be like that, or do shop owners' attitudes restrict the opportunities that audiences have to buy? I mean, we're all to blame if instead of putting down your 17th X book that month, putting down one and picking up a nice-looking independent, say, well, Dad, this dude, these folks did a good job with this. And, oh, this is $4.99 and the X book is $3.99? But I got to see what Nightcrawler's going to do this time. I mean... Spoiler, teleport. Yeah. No, he's going to teleport into the shadow, too, so you can't see him, remember? So you know... No, so is that our fault as an audience, and therefore the shop owners are responding to that? Or do shop owners who do have an attitude like, I bet I can sell this X book, I don't know anything about this, is this going to come in on time? And, you know, so that's when I did Menthu, the first arc, I had them all done before, and this was really before digital opportunities were as ubiquitous as they are. But he had shaking his head. I had them done, and nobody could say, oh, your quality's going to, oh, you're going to have to do issue 4 at Kinko's or whatever. You know, it was done, and the quality was the same. So I took care of that question, Now the question is, will you give me a fair chance? And that's on a you, and in general you. So what do we do? How do we as professionals approach it first and come up with professional stuff? Do we do it in a professional manner so that we're on schedule and on point quality-wise? And after we do that, then what does the audience, what do we as an audience demand from the gatekeepers? And what are the gatekeepers going to do once we present them with this is good, somebody will buy it, what are you going to do? So a lot of that falls into it. And a lot of that may also dictate what you're willing to pay for your production and such. So it's a nut. It's a nut that's all inside this hard-ass shell.
I think it's going to be a trade-off.
Okay, I think we should start asking some questions if anyone has. You have a question?
Hard heckle shell.
But in terms of going digital versus hard copy printing, are you then maintaining two different relationships with distributors, or can you go to one distributor that can do both? You know what I mean?
Well, now we're talking purely self-published, right? If we're talking purely self-published, distributor relationships change significantly. Comixology Submit has leveled the playing field in a lot of ways. You know, the team there, even though they're now owned by Amazon, which is a ruthless corporation, the team at Comixology are great guys. They're interested in indie comics. They're interested in supporting indie comics because they're really making a lot of money on indie comics. A lot. So it's in their interest to promote indie comics as well as they do other places. If you're using something like Gumroad, or if you're using something like Big Cartel and you're selling it just yourself, then you're going to get an even bigger piece of the cut, but you're going to take a bigger loss of that money in the time that you spend marketing it. So you don't have to worry about diamond distributors at that point. You don't have to worry about Graham Cracker Comics in the Midwest or Golden Apple in LA or Big Midtown in New York. You don't have to worry about making those relationships because it's not at issue. You will have to make those relationships when you decide, I want to go for the specific direct market, because that's only one market. You know, if you want to sell books to people in Japan, if you want to sell books to people in Suriname, you don't care about diamond. You know, so you have to look at what is your definition of success. What are you saying? This is what I want to accomplish. This is the goal I'm trying to get to, the aspiration I'm trying to get to. Somebody told me a goal is something you can control, but. What is the aspiration you're trying to achieve? And once you figure that out, you plan backwards from there.
And I think it's also important to keep in mind that if it's in terms of publicity and making a name and such, then you may well have to have that physical presence so that a buzz is created. And I'm thinking specifically about like a Golden Apple or a Midtown or something like that. Because the panel before, they had Eric Alexander and Tony Pure, and they had their signing at Meltdown about, was that 4 months ago or so ago?
Probably.
Yeah, you were there.
I was there.
I was working.
It was about 4 months ago, wasn't it?
I think it was longer than that.
A little longer than that. But because of that, people showed up. Because of that, people wrote stories. Because of that, there was press, and that doesn't really occur when you're simply selling digitally, but the digital selling makes sense as far as trying to merchandise. So you have to figure out a way to balance all of these requirements of yourself as a creator and of your creation.
Hey, Dwayne, could you talk a little bit about how you get a web series out, and what methods you use to get that to the people?
Well, for getting a web series out, essentially you're going to put it up on YouTube or Vimeo, and then you're going to hit your social network. And if it gets to the point where, there's no other way to say this, and to say if it's good, then people outside your media, outside of your social network are going to see it, and you're going to get more press. We got covered in Jet Magazine, which is a major publication. So that was a big coup for us. We've been interviewed on a number of science fiction radio shows, but that's all from people coming in, to see it, and they're enjoying it. The biggest coup I think we had though is something really small. Last year at Comic-Con, The lead actor and I got to the show early, so we were waiting in the lobby of one of the hotels. Kid came in, sat down next to us, and after a minute, he turned to Derek and said, "Hey, aren't you in CB Nation?"
Oh,
That's
Just it was like
you have made the crossover.
wow. So we're at Comic-Con, and somebody randomly recognizes us from the series. So it's just getting it out there, and if it's good, then it spreads from there.
Anyone else have questions? Yes, ma'am.
I'm
sorry.
I'm sorry. I was going to say the same kind of love that when I simply shared that link with my editor, and she went, "This is so great." And then when I phoned and said, I just handed her the phone when we were working together. That's one of the producers of CB Nation, and then I had to make her go and change her pants because she peed all on my chair and stuff because freaked out. And so, but it's like that. I mean, she didn't know CB Nation before I sent her the link, and then she just lost her mind because it's quality stuff.
I'd rather watch that than anything. A lot of stuff in my Hulu queue, honestly.
Your question.
So if you're a writer looking to hire an artist, or either you're an artist who's about to be hired by a writer, I assume there should be a contract involved.
Mm. Yes, there should.
For that contract, kind of, or maybe are there resources where we can go find out more about these types of contracts?
There's a site, I'm trying to remember, because I Googled for contracts and I found this site that helps you write contracts, basically. It's a legal site of some sort. And I'm sorry I don't remember it off the top of my head, but if I go through my email while other people are talking, maybe I can find it. And it let me start to craft contracts in a more professional way. I have two sisters who are lawyers, so I just basically thought, what do I want? What do I want people to do? And yada yada. And I sent them a draft of something like, you need terms of severability. What happens if the deal goes sour? You need penalties if one party doesn't, fulfill their responsibility, and so on and so forth. You need to say what state this is covered under, yada yada. So I was able to get that advice from them for free because we came from the same, basic genetic source. Actually, not the same womb, ironically enough. But that's a long story. Anyway, but there are a number of contracts online that you can modify for your purposes. What I would do is there's at least in the Los Angeles area, there's a number of these little legal cafes where you can pay for an hour of legal time and say, ask a question and sit down with a lawyer and they'll tell you and they'll help you. If you can't find that in the specific municipality where you are, there are places online that are like that. You can pay for limited amounts of time from a lawyer and they will help you. And I would definitely use those resources as best as possible because the worst, I was dating this girl once, and she was a rapper. She was in the studio, and she was walking down the hall humming this idea that she hadn't put together for a whole song. And she didn't think anything of it. And about 7 months later, we were riding in a car, and she heard Timberland on the radio saying this was his new song, and it was her song, because he was in the studio next door. But she can't prove that. So, yeah, definitely protect yourself, in all seriousness.
One thing that I did years ago, this was, I think, before Amazon.com, but I bought a book. It was contracts for artists. So I found it was contracts for various situations for artists. Well, as a writer, I actually took the contract and modified it for my needs and used that.
Any other questions for anyone? Yes, sir.
All right, so we got Gumroad. What are some other resources if you want to print your own comic? I'm not talking about having like a permanent source like Amazon, but just like, hey, I want to print 5 copies, 15 copies, and I want to have them at a booth.
Is Kablam still around?
I'm not sure.
It's like Kablam.
Kablam.
Kablam.com.
Yeah.
Also, and this
Lulu,
is
wasn't Lulu?
Yeah, Friends of Lulu. Friends of Lulu.
Well, Lulu.com, I think, will do a comic as well.
As well, and this is ironic that I discovered this because I used to work in newspaper publishing. There's a little tiny printer in Tahunga, and they do next to nothing. They do these little small print runs and local newspapers. And I said, how much would it cost if I want to do, 100 copies of this thing? And the price they quoted me was so stupidly low that it shocked me. Because a lot of these little print shops, little print bureaus in the middle of nowhere, they don't get a lot of work. They don't. So their prices are crazy low. And because they're mom and pop shops, because they're locally owned, especially if you live in that community, you support that community, they'll negotiate with you for a lot of times. If you tell them, well, I'm really trying to break it on this book, but yada, 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 and if they start to see you as a regular customer, they'll start to cut you they'll start to cut you a discount because they're more interested in volume from you than a big piece of money up front. So you'd be really surprised at the resources that could be literally on your block a lot of times.
I have that relationship with a printer near me named Harvey, and it depends. Also, if you're going black and white, if you're going color with your cover, or if you're going two-tone with your cover, there are a lot of variables that you have to consider. But that stated, I mean, if you're willing to go to, like, say, 100 threshold, then the price can change. I know there was a printer up in Canada that was doing stuff color, but if you hit the 100 point, then all of a sudden, you know, it becomes feasible that you can have copies to sell at a convention, and it's not going to cost you your shirt. So it just depends on these types of variables and how they roll into your business model.
Mm-hmm. It's
a
a business.
printer. There's a printer in North Hollywood, or at least they were.
Yeah,
I don't think they're there.
Citywide.
Citywide. Have you used them?
I've used them. They're hit and miss. You gotta punch Robert in his head to make him act.
Also,
right.
ask people.
Ask
people.
people.
Would know. It's like, no, don't mess with them. They ain't gonna help you.
No, yeah. But I do know guys who use them because they know that they're going to screw up, and that's going to drop your price even more. And I knew they did that.
You can have it good, but it won't be on time.
And then say, okay, I'm gonna do this, and he's gonna screw it up, and okay, and I'm sorry, here's $200 off. And
Actually,
like,
he did
okay.
do that to me too. But
Did he
citywide, so
cheat?
citywide printing. I've used them to print a poster once.
Where are you living?
I'm basically without my car, so.
Okay, you homeless. That's all right. That means you can drive to any printing you want to go to.
So citywide printing. I know they were in North Hollywood. I don't know if they're still there.
They're on Lankershim, I believe.
Not anymore.
They aren't anymore.
No.
There's a printer called Gotham Press in downtown LA also that supposedly does do good books. I haven't printed with them myself, but I've seen their product and it's pretty good. Any other questions?
Well, if you see people downstairs with a book, ask them where they got it printed.
Mm-hmm. If you like it, check them out.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
And you will get a cut on some of the price if, like, say, you run an ad for that printer in your book, like give them a half-page ad or give them the back cover or something like that. That also helps you to negotiate a better price.
Yes, sir. The glasses.
I have a question for Dwayne, and that is the monetization of your web series. How has that gone?
I'm sorry.
The monetization of the web series.
CV Nation.
How's that going to play out?
We are still working on that. In order for monetization to really work on YouTube, you have to have a lot of hits. And we're still working on how to get a lot of hits. The response I get from people says that a lot of people are watching it. I don't know how that's not translating into the numbers that we have. It's just a growing game as
Sounds
far
like
as
black folk cinema, but that's another story.
Well, I'll tell you another thing about web series is mine's called The Psychedelic Detective, and the first episode is called Abort the Baby Jesus. Now, I did that on purpose so that if anyone looking for anything in those words will come across my web series. And I've had friends that did other web series with a name like Fred, Martha, and Joe, and it just failed because no one knows to look for that. So, marketing, you have to put it out there and you have to do good stuff with it.
Yeah, because, and this is an important point, making the work is only part of your job.
Yes.
Selling the work is part of your job. Those are two completely different full-time jobs that are hard and have a completely different skill set. So
get help. Accept whatever help you can get that's worthwhile.
That's another reason why, like I said, I try to do this George Clooney model because I hate selling stuff. I'm terrible at it, but I can make stuff, so I want to make enough money making stuff that I can hire people to do the other stuff.
Any other questions? Anyone? Bueller? No? Dwayne, why don't you talk a little bit about how you went about finding actors and stuff for your web series? Was it a hard process or?
Well, no, I know a lot of actors. So it was a combination of talking to people that I actually knew, and we held auditions. The actress that plays Panthers came in and auditioned for us and blew us away. Just based on the people I knew, and then going to Actors Access, LA Casting, Now Casting. That's how we find actors for your web series.
Any other questions, anyone? No? No one? Come on now. You with the purple hair, I know you've got a question. Let me switch to that since we have a couple more minutes left.
Well, I was going to say, you know, like, I think that what you're doing with CV Nation is also an example of what we were talking about earlier in comics, as far as, okay, even if you can't afford to pay some really good actors and actresses who are in your project, they got something that they can use to market to get a really good paying job, like a commercial or whatever, because you know whenever you walk in to that casting director or whatever, they're going to say, what have you done? What can I see? And if they can click on a link and go and see them in CV Nation, they have value for the effort that they've given you.
Yeah, and likewise, I mean, it's the same thing. We get invested in characters because we learn about them, because we get to know them. The reason why, for example, you know, Black Panther is important to me because he lost his dad as a child, and he had this great responsibility that he has to shoulder, and yada, yada, yada. So I learned these things about a person, a character, and start to care about him. It's the same way with people. Robert wasn't interested in my work, you know, when I was, you know, in 2000 working the next planet over, because he didn't know who the hell I was. But after he had gotten to know me, he had gotten to see my work, he had gotten a sense of me, he got a sense of me as a human being, we were able to make a much different deal than if I had tried to approach him cold on a professional level. That would have cost me a lot more money to get a picture of Dynamis, who's this archangel character I've been trying to work on for years. It's amazing. But so,
I want to see him fighting now, man.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, but so networking is a key element of what you have to do. You have to meet people, not just online, but going to conventions. I mean, everywhere in the United States, at least, there's a convention you can go to. You can meet people who are doing the same work as you. You can meet people who are interested in the kind of work that you're doing. And yes, sir, I got you. I'll get you as soon as I finish whatever the heck I'm talking about. So in doing that, you can start to make better choices. I, you know, was asked on the previous panel by Brandon Easton. I met Brandon online, you know. Now he's a big TV writer with Disney and ABC, but, you know, when I met him, you know, he wasn't doing all those things. But I was able to watch him grow. And because we respect each other's talent, we don't let each other down, we lead each other to hiring opportunities and so on and so forth. So that kind of networking will eventually pay off because, yes, I'm incredibly mercenary and all my friends know if I call, I want something. But it's still good to get to know people in that kind of context anyway. I believe you had a question, sir?
Yeah, I see a lot of like Kickstarters for issue ones. I see a lot of indie comic guys at cons or at comic shops selling number ones. I see a lot of number ones.
Yep.
So knowing the financial investment that we just talked about earlier into getting a single book out, what would you say would be the best way to get over the hump so you're not just doing a number one, that you're actually at least finishing full?
Should I take that one?
Oh, I'll let you, because I'm going to steal something from my friend Brandon Easton, who suggested one of the real low impact ways to do that is you have, when you create a story, a fictional universe. People live in that fictional universe. They go to work, they have kids, they get killed, whatever. Start writing prose short stories. Things that you can't focus on in the comic because they're not relevant to the main story that you're trying to tell, but that expand on character, that expand on elements that are important to you. And in doing so, you eventually will be able, let's say you put those short stories on a blog, right? You put 12 of those out on a blog, then you pull them down, you wrap them up in a PDF, and you start to sell them on Gumroad, you start to sell them on Amazon. Hey, you got a little money in your pocket. Hey, you can use that to promote something or buy an ad on Project Wonderful or whatever. And then you're also building an audience who are interested in the work that you're doing. So that can help make it more than just this number one issue that you're building towards and you've put all your hopes and dreams in. No, you have a fictional universe. You've got people invested in your characters, invested in what happens. And moreover, you've given yourself more room to act. So if they're not interested in Super Wonderful Man, your main character, they may be interested in Awesome Girl, this side character that appeared in one of your prose things that you could then license out to do something else, use that money to spend more to make Super Wonderful Man, whatever. As a creator, we really, really have to be flexible. And the ideas that you have, I'm going to also steal. Eric Alexander said, your ideas are like real estate. But in my mind, if you don't build something on them, they can't ever appreciate.
I was just going to say, and I'm going to be blatant again, you know, like my Kickstarter just started today, and so it relates directly to your question. And yes, Menthu, M-E-N-T-H-U. It's not that hard to spell.
People put two O's. They do that.
Oh, they do that? Menthu.
American.
Okay, yeah, whatever. And as far as what you're saying, I thought about that. The number ones, the glut of number ones out there. Where's the number two? That's why I did all 4 at once, the entire arc. Nobody could come back to me. In fact, Jeff Thorne, who I think he was arrested for stealing something. While
he had to work today.
Oh, okay.
No, it was traffic.
He worked.
It was traffic.
It was traffic. He
While
couldn't make it from
working.
LA.
Oh, that's the story? All right, good.
Yeah,
He's a producer on this show called The Librarians, and he's super busy. So they told me he had to work. That's why I filled in.
He in jail.
That's racist.
He is racist. But, you know, if Jeff and I met when I was selling Men Through, when the first arc came out. I had a sign-in Golden Apple. Walked in, he looked at it, this looks good, but you aren't going to finish it. That's what he said that to my face. And I was like, okay. I said, it's going to be done. He said, no, you aren't going to finish it. Now,
you let him talk about your mama like that?
Like mine, yeah. He just kicked my dog in my own doorway.
Can I jump in? Can I jump in?
Okay, go
ahead. Last thing.
What I want to point out.
But you can jump in. Go ahead.
We're out of time. So whoever wants to make the last statement, please go ahead.
I think you should, instead of doing just like number one and asking for money for just the number one, do something else like what Hannibal suggested as far as doing a prose story, something else that's out there. People know what you are, what you're about, what you can do, and then you do a Kickstarter for the entire project as Robert is doing.
Yes.
So that you're not just, you're not asking for a bunch of money for the entire project and people don't know what you're going to do with it. For all they know, you're going to have a kegger.
Yeah.
If they know what you're about, they know what you're doing, and they've seen that, then you can ask for the entire amount of money and do the whole thing, and don't do it piecemeal.
Which is great advice I got from guys like these. And to that end, my 6 issues are done. They just need the inks and the colors. Written. I'm doing the letters.
Thanks, guys.
Guy to help me with the video stuff. So, yeah, we're done. 6 issues. It's a year's worth of stuff. So I'm not asking you to come and help me with 1 issue, and I'm using myself as an example. I'm asking you to come and help me finish off the last 25% of a year's worth of stuff. So is there value to what we're offering? Am I offering you value for what you're giving me back?
Thanks a lot.
Go see The Psychedelic Detective online. See The Psychedelic Detective. Yes.
HannibalTaboo.com. Thank you.
The Operative Network. And then what's
That's the Operative Network.